Welcome to a special episode of the Impact Nations podcast. My name is Tim. I am your host, and today we're interrupting our summer replay series to have a chat with my good friend and Impact Nations board member, Adam Powell.
We could minister to them by meeting practical needs, by feeding them. JOC's, Tim, changed my life.
Adam, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us. It's great. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. We've already been chit-chatting because we're just good friends, so we're just hanging out here too. So we're just inviting you, the Impact Nations podcast audience, to hang out with us today and just hear us chit-chat a little bit. Adam, you are coming to us from your office. You want to just tell people a little bit about what you do? You're a pastor. What's your life like?
What's life like as a pastor is a loaded question. This isn't what the podcast is about today, but I'll say this. I can't imagine doing anything else. I absolutely love what God gets me to do and the call that he's given on my life. And we are in my office. At first, I thought this might have been a terrible spot to film a podcast because typically my office is not your pastoral kind of office. Everything that you see in the background has been stuff that I've collected along the way or that has been given to me from people that I've pastored in various churches. So everything in my office that's on display has a story behind it. And what I've found over the years is when new people come in and they want to meet with me or, it creates an atmosphere where it's like, oh, what am I going to say to this guy for 20 minutes? It's like, what the heck is sitting behind him? And people will ask that. And everything in my office it has a story and a conversation starter. And so my most recent addition comes from our journey of compassion to Mexico.
Oh, nice.
So we flew into Phoenix, right? And then we had to walk across the border into Mexico. And the first gas station was 20 minutes in Ajo, just south of the border. And on the way down, they had this room off to the side of the gas station. And it had like all these trinkets and statues and like big kind of flowery stuff. And like, I thought it was stuff that you could buy. And anyways, I came across this little statue of I am a sucker for bulldogs. I have two of them. And everything bulldog I absolutely love. And there was this statue of a French bulldog. And everything in me was like, I need that. I have to have that. But my thought pattern was I only flew down with the carry-on. I got no extra luggage to fly back to Canada with. Right. So I'm like, I'll pass on it. And I'm telling you, man, one of the biggest regrets of my life was not buying this miniature statue of this French bulldog. So on the way back home, the same, I guess we chartered drivers, right, to take us from Phoenix into Puerto Peñasco. I begged them, please stop at that gas station in Ajo. I have a regret that you can help alleviate in my life. And he's like, yeah, no problem. We'll do it. And so I walk into that gas station. I go right into that room. And I was so shocked. How is this thing still on the shelf? It's like a hot ticket item. It should have been sold a long time ago. And so I picked it up along with a bottle of lemonade and I think it was some beef jerky. And this.
Oh, that is a big statue. No wonder you were concerned about your carry-on. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So it's the latest addition to my office. We call him Ajo because that's where we got him from. And literally, it is the size of a French bulldog. And I refuse to carry it through the airport with me. One of the people on our teams that came down from Canada with me had a carry-on bag that was like a purse. And so she put this thing in her purse. And we walked through the entire Phoenix airport with this dog like hanging, and everybody thought it was a real dog. She was getting, oh, it is so well behaved. And how did you train your dog? And little did they know this thing is just a piggy bank. You can see, it looks
beautiful.
Yeah, it looks real. And we got pictures of it going through the X-ray machine, and everybody's looking at us like, what are they doing to that dog? Anyways, it's the newest addition to my office. As soon as people come in, they're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, "Oh, that's just a statue."
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh man, that's marvelous. I would love, the reason I invited you to join us on the podcast today is because I want to hear about this trip to Mexico, because you've been talking about it ever since. I'm super jealous that I wasn't with you. I do want to clarify, and you did make it clear, but I just want to visit, because you said a moment ago, we flew into Phoenix and then we walked across the border. And so I want people to understand, if you've looked at a map and you've seen the distance between Phoenix and the Mexico border, Adam and his friends did not walk from Phoenix to the border. We were kind enough to get a vehicle to drive you to the border, and then you walk across. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd be a lot thinner if we had to walk from Phoenix, because it was during that heat wave. It was 110 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the people that Bill arranged to charter us from Phoenix into Puerto Peñasco, they do this. Like, that's all they do. They just do these runs all week, and it was very safe. And they were great drivers, and they said, if you go through the border with like a full van with all these suitcases, and you got a team of 20 something, I think it was 24 of us on the trip, like, your chances of getting pulled over and then having to empty out all your suitcases is very high. And because they do this on the daily, they just said, we're going to drop you off at the border, and you take your suitcase with you. You walk 100 yards through that gate. You'll be greeted by two guards at tables. You bring your suitcase to them. You open it up. You explain what you're doing, and then we'll go through empty, like the van will be empty, and we'll pick you up on the other side. And so that's what we did. There was a line of 23 or 24 of us. And by the third person, they realized we were all in a group, Tim, because I think it was Bill. He's like, yeah, we're going to Puerto Peñasco, and we're here to partner with local ministries, and we're going to help do some projects in houses, and we're going to do kids ministry and minister in churches. And as soon as they heard that, they're like, oh, let's just go. Let them all go. It was super easy, super safe. It was an incredible experience to say, we walked into Mexico and walked out back into Phoenix or into Arizona, and it was right at the border. We didn't have to walk long.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right, so today, if you haven't caught up, today we're talking about a journey of compassion to Puerto Peñasco, Mexico. If you're new to Impact Nations, we like to say we rescue lives with a really big gospel. We do that in a bunch of different ways, including long-term transformational work, where we're bringing skills training, and we're bringing like sustainable organic gardening and all these things to help communities be able to stand on their own 2 feet and flourish the way God intended. But one of the other things that we do is called a journey of compassion, where we take teams of anywhere from 20 to 50 people into a developing nation to work with our partners to do ministry together on the front lines, to be the hands and feet of Jesus for a few days, and really meet the practical needs of the poor. And so, Adam, you had the privilege of joining Bill, who's our Journey of Compassion director. The two of you guys led a team into Puerto Peñasco, Mexico, in July of this year, just a couple weeks ago. And you actually, thank you. You were kind of our guinea pig, because we were trying something new. Traditionally, we do longer trips and we do medical clinics and all sorts of stuff. But we tried something a little different this year, which was a real short trip that was designed to make it accessible for those who perhaps can't get much time off work, or it keeps the cost down. So for those who might have a more limited budget, they still get an opportunity to go and experience what God might have for them in the mission field. So I don't know, maybe just tell us first off, what was that like doing a shorter trip? It was very different from ones that you've done in the past.
Yeah, this was I think it was my fourth journey of compassion. And like you said, it was the shortest of the two. It was also the hottest. Now, everyone on the team, not just from my church that came, everybody on the team, multiple times a day, we made this statement: it is so hot. But it wasn't a complaint. It was just, we're not used to that kind of weather. It was more just like an exclamation, like, it is hot. So we were really thankful that the journey did not go for 12 days. We felt it was the perfect amount of time. If not a day or two longer, would have been great too. But to have this short of a journey basically it was a long weekend, right? We flew down a Thursday and we came back Monday. To have it be that short meant that everything that we had to do had to be done with as much purpose and with being very intentional as we possibly could, because we knew that we weren't having much time. It was hot. We had to take lots of breaks to stay cool and hydrate, to do what we were doing, because we were working outside. Or if we were working inside, you didn't get that breeze, but there was still no air conditioning in some of the homes that we were working in. So it was a different journey in that respect of time. I feel like it was just as impactful that we did just as much, because we knew that we didn't have that much time when we were there. So we made every moment count.
You had a team of people who were, for the most part, very new to Journeys of Compassion, which is fun. And I would say most of our journeys, at least 50% of people are new to a trip like that. What were some of the, and by the way, I should say, just this is going to sound a lot like an advertisement, and so I apologize, but this is one of the things Impact Nations does, is we actually do our best to serve as essentially as a missions wing for churches that perhaps, not the mega church that already has a missions pastor, things like that. And you guys fit into that bill. So for Calvary Barrie, Impact Nations really serves very much as a part of your entire missions program. And so we were very happy to include a large number of people from your church. What were some of the feelings going into this for those who were new to doing a trip like this?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the way we started our missions team training. We have this group going that was going to go to Puerto Peñasco, Mexico, but we're also, I think there's 9 of us coming to Nepal, little plug there, for October, which we're equally as excited about. And we combined both teams we did about 5 or 6 weeks of training nights on a Wednesday. We did it together. We met at our church. And I think, Tim, it really started the first training night, because I opened up with the question, like, what do you want to see Jesus do on these trips? Or like, what are your expectations? Literally, nobody in my church on either team has been on a journey of compassion before. And only 2 other people out of both teams have been on a missions trip before. Most people's answers was like, we're going with no expectation. We have no idea what to expect. And that kind of is the truth. I mean, I remember my first journey of compassion was to Vishakhapatnam, India, and I had no clue what I was about to experience when I was there. And so it was like a memory lane thing for me. Like, I remember what that was like. And sometimes that's daunting, right? Like, we're going to a foreign country. I mean, people on this trip, Tim, many of them, it was their first time away from their parents, first time out of Ontario, first time out of Canada, first time flying, first time on a missions trip. So like everything was new. They just got wrecked. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And so what are your expectations? What do you want to see Jesus do? And I had no idea what to expect. That was night 1 of the training. We played the training videos, and I can't remember the title of the first training one. I think it was, the name slips my mind, but training video number 1, right? Steve is talking about, our authority in Christ and the kingdom of God and how big that is and all that. And then we ended the night. We came back week 2. All right, guys, what are you expecting Jesus to do on the trip? And we had one guy on our trip. His name was Owen. He's in grade 11, and he's going into grade 12. And he's like, I know last week I said I don't know what to expect, but after hearing about the kingdom of God from our teaching, the week before, I want to see Jesus open some blind eyes. And so, like, as we started to do these training team building, sessions together, the momentum for what we could believe and have the faith to see God do, it was just like a snowball. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Building
so by the end of the trip, everyone was like, we want to see crippled people walk. We want to see deaf ears open. We want to see blind eyes open. It wasn't just like, I'd love to see a fever disappear. Like, everybody's expectations got bigger and bigger and bigger. And which was really cool to see, because like literally everyone on my trip thought, oh, there's no way I would experience that. There's no way I could see that. But now when they come back post-trip, we just had our recap Sunday last weekend, and 13 people on my team, I think in some way, shape, or form, they got up and they gave testimony. I thought I would never be able to do it, but I did. And Jesus showed up. Like, it really has nothing to do with me. It's all to do with him. Oh my gosh, man. It transformed my people's lives. I don't know a better way how to disciple people than to take them on a journey of compassion, because you go 0 to 100 so quick. And like, how else do you want to live? You know, like, it's so exciting to be thrown into that kind of like organized chaos, if that makes sense, you know?
Oh yeah. And I think one of the wonderful things is that you are thrown right into the deep end, to the place where it's like, well, okay, God, you're going to have to show up, because I don't have a clue what to do here. Like, I just, I'm going to follow some simple steps that were taught to me in a video, but then the rest is up to you. And it sounds like the Lord showed up in spades, eh?
Yeah, he always does, right? But see, for me, in my experience, I was just as terrified to go on this trip. It's been 3 years because of the pandemic. Obviously, we couldn't do these journeys of compassion. I think that we had the Philippines, right? And then this one. So this is the second one since the world has opened up. And I'm not that confident in myself, like in my abilities and giftings on the best of days. But to be thrown into just to do ministry and to preach in a vernacular that is not what I'm used to and what I'm comfortable for, it was a huge stretch for me. I just told the team that, I think, on day one at the debrief, or not the debrief, but the opening statements of the journey. Hi, my name is Adam Powell, and I am terrified to do what I think Jesus is asking us to do this week, but we're going to do it together. And so I seen Jesus work in my own heart and in my own life, and do significant change in me as well as everybody else. Yeah. So it wasn't like an us and them. It wasn't throwing others into the den of lions. It was literally all of us are going through this together. But we're in this together. And what's the worst that could happen?
That's such a great question to ask. What's the worst that could happen? Because really, sometimes the enemy would lie to us and build up fear in us, that if we actually stop and just analyze it, we go, wait a minute, what's there to be afraid of, really?
Yeah. After story of people in my team, Thomas, guy on the team with us, never preached in his life. And Sunday morning, we were going to minister to these two churches. And Bill and I were like, man, who are we going to go and get preached? Because the person that we were going to have preached the night before, she was sick. She got too much sun and she just had to stay back. And so it's like, who's going to do it? And Thomas walked out of his hotel room to the fan at that time. And I'm like, hey, Thomas, you want to preach? Out hesitating. Yeah, I think I can do it. And afterwards, he said, it's really daunting and intimidating to be asked that. But I really didn't have time to think about my answer. And two, I don't know if I would ever see these people again. So even if it didn't go well, it's not like you have to carry around that, am I going to get invited back to preach kind of, pressure.
Yeah.
But he did incredible. And I think we've seen the testimonies of that lady who was healed of arthritis, and she was walking around without her walker. I mean, that came after Thomas's preaching and encouragement to the church to step out in faith and to ask Jesus for all that. And like, it was how it was supposed to be. It was perfect.
I just want to revisit something you said a minute ago. When you opened up to your team and just basically confessed to them, like, hey, I'm terrified too. That's a rather unique thing, I think, for a pastor to have that level of transparency and authenticity with their team. Is it a scary thing to actually admit to being scared to your team? Like, is that a difficult thing for you to be that transparent with your people?
I think at one point in my life, it probably was. It absolutely was. I think over the years, I've gotten used to, like, I'm human. Just because my job or my calling is to pastor, it doesn't mean I do it perfectly. It doesn't mean I'm an expert at it or that I don't make mistakes or have foot and mouth moments. I mean, I know my giftings, and my gifting is teaching, great with a laptop in front of me when I have my notes and I have 20 hours in a week to prepare a sermon, and I make mistakes a lot. I'll embrace that. I'm not perfect. I'm not the best preacher in the world, but it's not me. It's the Holy Spirit that works and speaks through me. And so I've just come to grips, the more and more that I failed thinking that it was, like an Adam Powell issue, I just realized I'm discrediting God a lot when I try to operate in my own strength instead of when we're weak, he is strong. And so I wanted people on this trip, not just from my people here in Canada, but from all over the US and the other parts of Canada that came down. I wanted everybody to know we're in this boat, but we're in it together. And I think I challenged everybody, like, what is one thing that spiritually scares you, that you're terrified to do? and let's do it. Let's grab this bull by the horns. Let's face our fears. The one thing for me, because it's outside of my comfort zone, is to preach spontaneously without notes. The thought of that, like, I get clammed up and just terrifies me, because that's not my norm. You know, when we're in the developing world, we don't have the option to say, oh, hang on, let me get my laptop out and let me download you have to trust the Holy Spirit. Yeah. And, you know, God did that for me on the trip. And because I was so open and honest with my team ahead of time, it ministered to them. I think it was night 2 in the church. My thing was, I'm terrified to preach without my laptop, without my notes. And I had prepared some sermons to share while we were down there. And it was night 2 in this church. The place we were at in Puerto Peñasco, they actually call it the Devil's Armpit. That's the name of where that church was. Lovely. And the reason why they called it the Devil's Armpit is because when Puerto Peñasco started to develop, that was the first place where the train stopped. And so the whole village or city grew from there. And the thought process was, well, everything bad that went into Puerto Peñasco came from there. So it's the Devil's Armpit. But likewise, everything good that is in Puerto Peñasco came from there too, right? So we wanted to capitalize on opposite of Devil's Armpit is, you know, like we wanted to encourage these people that Jesus sees them and that they have a huge role to play in the kingdom. And the Holy Spirit has equipped them to do what God's asking them to do. And it was just like this beautiful moment. But in this church, I think there were probably 30, 35 kids showed up and maybe 4 adults. And I planned to preach on the women or the woman with the issue of bleeding for 12 years. Which that would have gone over really well. Yeah, with 30, 35 kids that are 10 and under. Like, that is not the sermon to preach tonight. I'm telling you, it was one of the best experiences of worship in my life. I said to the pastor, you know, when's your worship team coming? Because we were in a church and they were doing this as outreach, right? Oh, we don't have a worship team. Oh, okay. No worship team. All right. I'm just going to do my own worship. And they're like, no, we're going to worship with our kids. I said, okay, well, how do you do this? And she's like, we have YouTube and we have a speaker. And she put on Sing, Sing, Sing from Chris Tomlin in Spanish. And we played through the song and the kids started clapping and dancing. And the pastor repeated the last 2 minutes of that song again. And we finished that song clapping and dancing. And then when that song came to a fade at the end, the pastor went back and played again the last 2-minute mark. I'm not kidding you, Tim. 45 minutes is how long worship was in this church. Wow. And it was to Sing, Sing, Sing from Chris Tomlin in Spanish. And I've never experienced this in my life. I felt in my heart to get up and dance with those kids in worship. Wow. And I never clapped so much in my life. I never danced in the spirit so much in my life. We were happy. And at the end of it all, there was about 60 of us at the front of the church worshiping God to Sing, Sing, Sing on repeat for 45 minutes. And the presence of God was so strong in that service. And it's like, I totally forgot that I had to preach a sermon that I didn't prepare. And in that moment, God said, hey, remember how you're stretching people to do something you're terrified of? Now's your time, Adam. And I'm like, all right, we're going to do Zacchaeus. And because it was all these kids, I'm like, let's act out Zacchaeus. So who's going to play Zacchaeus? Who's going to play Jesus? I need the tallest guy in the room. He's going to be our sycamore tree. I need a crowd. And I just did like this on the fly kids sermon about Zacchaeus. And by the end of that sermon, the adults kind of trickled in the room. And then the Lord just gave me 2 points to share to the adults before we said, hey, like Jesus wants to be part of your life. What do you want from him today? Is there healing? Is there breakthrough? The altar call that's a really bad language for what we're doing. But you know what? We opened it up for people to have meaningful encounters with Jesus. Yeah. And healing broke out. Salvation broke out. Some of my team was baptized in the Holy Spirit before they went home after that. It was just like mind-blowing. but it came through the distraction of worship for me in a different way than what I'm used to. And the Holy Spirit just dropped that in my heart. And it's like, oh, if I can do this, anybody can do this. And so we just seen that trickle down through our team. And the next day, preaching for them was easy. Sharing testimonies was easier for them. Praying for strangers, it was easy. Praying for the sick, it was like a domino effect.
Yeah.
So I really feel like, hey, if I'm open and honest about where I'm worried or maybe walking in a bit of fear or doubt in my life, and they see God show up, then it's I don't know. That's just how I am.
Yeah. Puerto Peñasco is a resort town that also, it used to be a fishing village, I think. And so there are communities there that are terribly impoverished, despite, you may look at the beach side of things and see some nice resorts, but when you get into town a little bit, you start to see some poverty. What did you guys see? How are you ministering to the poor in practical ways?
Yeah, it's well, like anywhere, the poor is always in the backyard of the rich. Yeah. And it's unfortunate like that. And for many of our like the whole team, the impact team that was on that JOC, it was the first time that they saw poverty like that. Dusty roads, garbage everywhere. There was one moment in the journey we were doing. I think it was the house that was doing the insulation and drywall. And there was a young family that lived there, but they lived kitty corner across the street to a variety store. And I don't know how old these kids were. Maybe they were 5, 6, 7 years old. Never had the money to go across the street to get a cold Coca-Cola. And so our team that was administering and doing that house, it just took a break to take the kids over. And they said, hey, get some Coke, get some chips. And they came back. My team was astonished that 4 bottles of Coke only cost $1. Those kids grew up across the street, and that was the first time, I think, that they ever were able to go in and buy a bottle of Coke, because whatever they do have is strictly for survival. It's not the frivolous bottles of Coke when it's a hot, sunny day. And we did feeding. One of our partners in Puerto Peñasco, he had this hot dog cart that we carried around to the outreaches that we did. One night we did burgers. The other night we did bacon wrapped hot dogs, which was incredible. Yeah. And just for many people that were on that JOC, it was an awakening. Hey, this might be the only meal that some of these people are going to be able to eat this weekend. It's very sobering. It's very eye-opening to know that you are meeting a need that is often overlooked, but it is such a desperate need. And then just in ministry, I mean, you and Tim, we both know, when we're doing JOCs, this one was a little bit different in the sense that it wasn't a medical clinic. It was more doing a housing thing. But hey, for the people in Puerto Peñasco that lived in that home, that was the biggest need that we could have met. Yeah. And when we're helping them meet that need, it obviously creates conversation, for Jesus to be invited into it. We had this one guy, he was the neighbor of the house that we were doing the parging or putting the stucco on the outside wall. And he's just sitting in his truck watching. And eventually he gets out of his truck and he's got a cane and he limps over and he just leans against the house and watches the team. Somebody on the team pulled me aside and said, hey, this guy's got a cane. I think we need to pray for him. Let's do it. Right. I think the testimony is online. So we pray for him. And his story was he got hit by a car 2 years ago. He was riding a motorcycle and the car turned around and hit him twice. And so he's got this titanium rod in his leg and he's been in constant pain for the last 2 years. So we prayed for him and instantly, a smile came across this guy's face. Now he could speak English, so he was able to communicate all this stuff with us in real time. And he's like, oh my goodness. He was shocked. The pain completely left him instantaneously. And what I loved about this journey of compassion is the projects we started, it put something in the team. They're no, we want to finish this before we go home. Wow. So let's go back tomorrow. We go back tomorrow. The same guy He's limping still because he's got a titanium rod, but he's not using his cane. Hey, man, how's the pain? When you guys prayed, it left and it has not come back.
Wow.
And by the end of the weekend, he was mixing concrete by hand in a wheelbarrow and walking the wheelbarrow to the rest of the team without the need of his cane. So not only, I go back to the first night, what do you expect? Well, I don't know what to expect. By the time we go, I want to see Jesus heal. To now, it's like, we prayed for this guy. He told us the pain is gone. But is he just telling us that because it's what we want to hear? But when you go back 24, 48 hours later, and the guy's like, I still have no pain. Like, what a testimony to the fact that when Jesus heals, he does it 100%. And so that just increased the faith in the team on this JOC even more. Because a lot of the time on the JOCs, we don't get to do that follow-up, right? We partner the people with local pastors and ministry. Yeah. But our team in Mexico got to do that, which was so valuable because we had so many young people on this trip. And it was the first time they ever seen somebody get healed. And they were still healed a few days later, which that's a good thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't even know what the question is. I don't even know if I didn't answer the right question. It's been awesome. It was so good.
So I'm interested to know, you're a pastor who you were on this trip, but also now you continue to pastor this church, pastor these people who've come back. It's been a few weeks. What have you seen just in terms of kind of lasting fruit in the lives of those who went? My people
have this confidence. I don't know who of my people is going to listen to this podcast later, so I won't name anybody by name. But when I told them my biggest fear was preaching without notes and spontaneously, that's Adam Powell's fear. After being almost 20 years in pastoral ministry, their biggest fear was just praying out loud. Some of their biggest fear was just asking a stranger, how can I pray for you? Right?
Yeah.
Now, after they've had 5 days of doing that in Mexico and seeing God consistently show up and come through, now they're living this out. So we had our recap last Sunday. I knew Magna, who's also on the trip with us. She's on staff with me here. I knew she was going to open it up for prayer for healing at our church. But what the team didn't know is, guess who's working the altar call?
Right. Yeah. Guess who the ministry team is? Yeah.
Every one of them. Because we all wore our Impact shirts, right? And if you're in a blue shirt, same thing. So if you're in a blue shirt, we want to pray for you. I want every blue shirt in the room come to the front. And if there's need, if you need Jesus to heal you, like we just heard 13 amazing testimonies about Jesus. Like, and we didn't leave them, at the border.
Right.
We brought him back with us. Like he still wants to do this today. And we had 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds and 27-year-olds and 35-year-olds and 55-year-old people on that were on that trip, who otherwise would never feel like they could pray with people, here. Now they're praying for the people that have pain in their necks in our church, and Jesus is healing them of that pain. And so the confidence that I was able to see 2 weeks later. We just ran a day camp for community kids, and some of those volunteers, again, they were on that trip to Mexico. They're sharing their stories and what God has done, and it's just like the confidence increased greatly in the team. It was amazing.
That's fantastic. Hey, by the way, I wanted to ask you. You guys at one point you needed some more translators, and you and Bill had just a clever little solution to that one day. Can you just tell us that story?
Yeah, it kind of answers part of your question with seeing poverty and how to meet those needs. We were Bill and I took some time in the afternoon to film the community impact videos that I think it was just put out this weekend. You got to watch it. It's so good.
Yeah,
And
and I'll tell you what. Sorry,
we were filming that.
What I will say is this: just a plug. If you're listening to this, God bless you. Thank you for subscribing to the audio podcast. But as you likely know, we broadcast these on YouTube as well. And so this episode, I think we'll attach that community impact video right here, so you've got it. We'll put it at the end of this video, but also at the beginning of the video, you get to see the piggy bank bulldog. So really, this is one you really want to see. So anyway, continue.
Yeah. So we walked, because that devil's armpit, I really did not sit well with me. You know, like what just a depressing thing to speak over a community. You know, and it's, so we're in this community and it's right by the train, like literally right at the train tracks. Like I think the last house was probably 25 feet from the train tracks. It was just so close. We're in this like desert almost, and it's so far away from the tourism and all that sort of stuff. And we're like, listen, let's do this community impact video, and we're standing in between the house and the train tracks, and we're just talking about what Jesus is doing and what we felt like was the heartbeat for this JOC. And this guy just kind of walks out of nowhere, and I see him in the corner of my eye, and I'm just talking to the camera for Bill, and then we finish filming, and he's just sitting there leaning up against a lamppost, like watching us. And he could speak fluent English as well, and so his name was Frank, I believe, and so we just walked over and struck up conversation with him. And long story short, he was house sitting for some family. Now, you can use house sitting loosely. Whether he was squatting or house sitting is probably the same thing. And the family that he was house sitting for didn't leave the AC on for him, didn't leave, like, there was no fridge, no food, nothing. And he's like, I'm really hungry. I haven't eaten in days. Shared, a laundry list of problems. And Bill and I just ministered to him, and we prayed with him. And we thought, man, there's more that we can do than just encourage this guy who's having a really rough go. Hey, we need translators. And this guy speaks fluent English. And so we said to him, listen, we could really use your help tonight. We will feed you dinner, and we will pay you. Can you please come to a service? We'll pick you up. We'll drop you off. Can you please come to this outreach that we're doing in this community? And we'll pay you to translate for us. You don't need to have the right words to say. We just want you to repeat what we're saying so that the people we're ministering to can have a good understanding of what we're saying. And then you can tell us, oh, I would love that. And so Frank got in the back of the truck with us. It was the day we stopped at Dairy Queen. Now, most JOCs, you're not going to be within miles and miles and miles of a Dairy Queen. But I just felt like at 104 degrees, like that was a real treat. And so we bought Frank a Blizzard, and we took him to the hotel. We fed him dinner. He ministered alongside of us, and we fed him dinner, like a meal again before we dropped him off. And in those moments where it's like, oh, man, we need translators. We don't know what to do. It can be a little overwhelming, and like, man, we really want to know what we're praying for. And I'm sure people want to hear what we're saying. Like it became like a stress point, but it's like, hang on. There are many people around that can speak English, but are homeless or just passing through, that are really hungry. We could minister to them by meeting practical needs, by feeding them, putting $20 in their pocket. And they get to be in the presence of Jesus, at these encounters or these outreaches that we were doing. And for me, that point was a really great demonstration of how at Impact Nations, like, we believe that the gospel is so big and beautiful that it touches every area of life, both practically and spiritually. We met practical needs, and Jesus met those spiritual needs. And it was a really great strategy that it was obviously of the Lord. Like, because what are the chances
Oh yeah. No, and that's the first
Yeah.
time. I'm sure, we've done 80 journeys of compassion, I think, or something, maybe over 80, but I'm sure that's happened before. This is the first time I'd heard of it. And it really blessed me, because one of the things that we're like, our mission is to restore dignity, right? Like the narrative of the gospel is, hey, God created a beautiful creation. He created it to function a certain way. And through sin, it has broken down and is no longer functioning the way it was intended to function. And God began a rescue mission with Christ, and on the cross was the beginning of new creation, of him restoring all things to the way they ought to be. And then he's invited us to participate in that mission of reconciliation, of restoring things to the way they were intended to be in the first place. That is what his justice is all about, setting things back to the way they were originally designed. And so in that very moment, you're able to restore dignity to somebody, and almost help them understand, like, hey, you've got a role to play in this kingdom. Like we see you, Jesus sees you. He saw you in this moment. He sent us to be in this place at this time to help bring that significance to your life that you were created for in the first place. And I love that. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful example of just the gospel at work, bringing transformation right there and then.
And that, Tim, was the heartbeat of this specific journey of compassion to Puerto Peñasco, Mexico. The story that we told with the kids was of Zacchaeus, right? And he climbed the tree. And I think the team collectively would agree that our mission in being there, or the thing that we wanted to communicate the most, is these people who live in the devil's armpit, just like Zacchaeus and Jesus. Like, Zacchaeus had to climb a tree to see Jesus because he couldn't see through the crowd. But Jesus still saw Zacchaeus.
Yeah.
And that tree is what lifted Zacchaeus up so that he could see Jesus. And we felt on multiple occasions throughout this JOC that we were that tree, or we were to be that tree. Yeah. These people feel beat up. They got this stigma of living in the devil's armpit. Like, nothing good comes out of there. Well, hold on. So much good can come out of it. Like, we're going to lift up people.
Adam, your enthusiasm has been caught here. And so Bill and you and me are working together already a year ahead of time to plan next year's journey to Puerto Peñasco. And I know we've got viewers and listeners who have been on the sidelines, and they've been listening to this podcast for maybe a year or two and haven't yet taken the plunge on a journey of compassion. What would you say to those who are unsure whether or not a journey of compassion is for them?
I think JOC's, Tim, changed my life. My very first journey that I went on was to India. I mentioned that already. And I went because the Holy Spirit said, Adam, it's going to rock you to the core, and it's going to change the way you do ministry forever. And every single journey that I've been on since, not only do I get to re-experience in some capacities, that mountaintop experience that JOCs bring. It's always made the mountain higher, if that makes sense. Everyone has been, I've learned, I've grown, I've changed. If there's anything in our walk with the Lord, in whatever vernacular we're in, whether that's in Australia or the States or Britain or Canada, if there is any hint of apathy or complacency, the answer is, if we're feeling like, there's just more I can do, or I feel like I feel like maybe there, I don't know what the word is. Man, JOCs are the answer to rekindling the fire that might have died. And so if that's us, if we're like wondering, man, what's my next step? I don't know what to do. I feel like Christianity's become monotonous. The answer is get on a JOC. It will change your life. And if we're constantly walking on that high and things are going really good now, God has so much more for you. Like, take the adventure, get on a plane, get on the next JOC. It's something, I don't know how to explain it, but like, Journeys of Compassion have this unique way. We could have teams of 25 people or 50 people, but everybody, no matter where they are in their walk, like God meets them where they're at, and they leave encouraged, and they leave, courageous, and they come home inspired. And if there was any hint of apathy, it causes people to come alive again and want to be more proactive in their faith, but at the home front. Like, we don't just have to go to Puerto Peñasco, Mexico to feed the poor. We could do that back here as well, or wherever we're coming from. So I think my biggest encouragement, it doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're dead or alive, there's something on a journey of compassion that the Lord has for everyone. And this is just my testimony. It's been my experience, but I'm hearing it time and time again from the people that I bring on these journeys of compassion. And it's like getting bit by a bug, and you just get really addicted. in a good sense.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Nepal. God moved in Mexico, and I have, as a pastor, like, I got 3 years of sermon illustrations that I could pull from. But I know that Nepal is 3 months away. And it's twice as long. That's twice the amount of stories, twice the amount of time that we're going in 100 miles an hour, pursuing Jesus and what he's going to do, and stepping out in faith, as scary as that's going to be for me, even then, again, in 3 months from now. But I'm going to do it. If that's what you're looking for, you're going to find it on a journey of compassion.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening to this and you think, gee, I just need to get in on this, you can join Adam and I. We're going to be in Nepal together. I should know the dates. October 15th, I believe, for 9 days, October 15th to 24th. We're going to be landing in Kathmandu. We're going to be doing some ministry there. We've got a safe house that's doing vocational training and stuff. We're going to be with them for a couple of days, just ministering with them and encouraging many of the people that live in that safe house. But then we're off for, I think, a 5-hour drive up to Chitwan, which is this beautiful region of Nepal where we've got a burgeoning house church movement. And our partners asked, please come help us. We've been prayer walking. We've been planning for just an explosion of house church movements here. And so we would like for Impact Nations to come and just lay hands on the sick, tell people about Jesus, get some medical care. We'll be doing medical clinics there as well, and preaching the gospel and having all sorts of adventures that we can't possibly know about just yet, because Adam, as you've testified today, just the unknown lays before us, and yet we know God has got it laid out perfectly for us.
Yeah, and we're going to walk in that. I'm excited, Tim. It's going to be a great journey. I wonder what kind of trinkets and knickknacks I can find to bring home from there.
Well, I'm excited because I think it's the first journey that you and I will be on together. So
that's right.
We will try to be on our best behavior, but I'm sure
only if people come, though. You gotta come.
You got to come if you want to keep us in check.
That's it.
There are a lot of people already coming on that journey. I think we've got 25 or so registered, 26. And nice. So, but there's still a little bit of space left. You really want to be there. We were going to be ministering in India, but things have changed politically there. It's very difficult. But some of our partners from India, and you know who that is, they've got house church movements beginning to develop in Nepal. So they're going to be actually leading that trip with us. We'll be on the Nepalese side of the border, but we will be ministering with our Indian friends as well. So you don't want to miss that. Please come join us. It's going to be so much fun, and we're going to see God move, and we're going to see lasting impact. I was on the phone with my friend from India who oversees that house church movement, and he was telling me again, he said, you wouldn't believe the transformation we've seen in these villages that you were last in. And that the last time we were in India, by the way, was 2020. You mentioned the pandemic, Adam. We had a team of 30 people in India that was on the ground when it was declared an international pandemic. In March of 2020, and suddenly we had to figure out how to get them home because all the airports were shutting down and stuff. And yet the fruit of that alone, that even in the midst of that difficulty of COVID and all those things, we continue to see just explosive growth of the church. I was told by my friend yesterday, there's one village where it's like everybody is a believer now. Like the entire community has totally changed. And of course that means not just their hearts have changed, but like the everything's changed. The economy, the way that the society interacts with one another, everything's changed because the kingdom has come, and we're going to see that in again everywhere we go. And so you don't want to miss out on being a part of that. If, however, Nepal doesn't work for you, we've got we're going to be in Dominican Republic in January, February. We're going to be in Malawi in April. Women, we've got a team of women that are going to be going to Uganda in June, I think. And then June or July, we're working on the dates, but it'll be like end of June, beginning of July, I think. You're going to be taking a team back to Puerto Peñasco. And I have a sneaking suspicion that's going to be an even bigger team this time around after what you guys experienced.
Yeah. Well, listen, I purposely left a part of my heart there, so I got to go back to pick it up.
That's beautiful.
I honestly
before we wrap up, anything else you want to share? Any other stories or any final words of encouragement?
God is doing something incredible, and let's just get on board and let's do it together and celebrate after together.
Yeah. Amen. Well, Adam, thanks so much for spending time with us today. Thanks for leading that trip, and thanks for being willing to lead in Nepal and then again in Puerto Peñasco next year. Sure appreciate you. Just the way God's using you powerfully to preach the gospel in these nations, but also to pastor people through this great adventure and help them discover what they were made for.
Oh man, it's a privilege and an honor, and I absolutely love it. It's an exciting time to be alive. That's for sure.
Amen. Well, folks, thanks so much for joining us. We'll pick up with our summer replay series again next week. I think we got Brad Jerzak next week, so stick around for that for sure. Be sure to subscribe. You can subscribe to the Impact Nations podcast through your audio device, through whichever podcast service you use. Just look for Impact Nations podcast. Be sure to give us a 5-star review. That helps others discover us. And then if you're on the YouTube, you know the deal. Subscribe, hit the bell so you get the notifications, because we are releasing not just podcast stuff, but also videos of encouragement, of stories of kingdom transformation from all over the world all the time. So you don't want to miss out on those things. So youtube.com/@Impact Nations, I think, is our handle. Thanks so much. We will see you again next week. God bless.